What's up, Knicks fans? We are back again for another season with our friends at Fanatics Sportsbook. And of course, that means we're talking about FANCASH. Now, most sportsbooks, their rewards are just fluff, but FANCASH is the ultimate sports currency. You see, when you bet with Fanatics Sportsbook, you get up to 10% FANCASH back on your wagers, win or lose. And did I mention that they're giving away millions in FANCASH this year? And you can use that FANCASH on anything in the Fanatics universe? Go check it out for yourself and download the app today. Fanatics Sportsbook. Winning hits different here. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Knicks Film School Pregame Show. My name is Andrew Claudio, and it is time to preview another Knicks matchup. This time it's Monday night against the Washington Wizards. Quick programming note. I'm recording the intro to this podcast right after the Knicks defeated the Chicago Bulls on Sunday night at Madison Square Garden, 128-116. The pregame pod you're about to hear, I recorded on Sunday morning, way before the Knicks had snapped their 3-game losing streak. And part of the conversation that you're about to hear has a tone to it that reflects a bit more concern, specifically when it comes to Josh Hart and how he's played throughout the first 4 games of this season. We actually got some breaking news during the game. Shout out to our friends Fred Katz and James Edwards III of The Athletic, who reported that Josh Hart is dealing with a nerve injury in his shooting hand. This is an injury he sustained last year during the playoffs, which is ironic because he shut the lights out during the playoffs, but it did get worse during the conference finals. He had surgery to repair it during the offseason. And then during a scrimmage in training camp, Mikal Bridges drove to the basket and he re-injured the hand reaching for a steal. And it's something that causes him to lose feeling in his middle and pinky fingers, or middle and ring fingers. I believe it is 2 of his fingers. He loses feeling in his shooting hand, which is why he is struggling with his shot at the moment. In this article, in the reporting from The Athletic, he said, Josh Hart said that he is working on his shot every day, trying to play under this new reality of losing feeling in his hand. And what I'll say is this: the way he played on Sunday night, that guy can play through the pain. Doctors have told him, according again to the reporting at The Athletic, according to Josh, who I guess spoke to The Athletic, doctors have told him he can play through the pain, but if he gets the surgery that he will probably need to get in order to fully repair this issue, he'd be out for close to 3 months. And Josh is choosing to play through the pain. If he plays like he did on Sunday night, he can play through the pain. He was outstanding. 14 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, all the Josh Hart plays, the hustle, the high energy, the 80-20 balls that he got to, a ton of offensive rebounds, a bunch of good passes, and being a connector for the team. Just a good night overall for Josh Hart. If that's the Josh Hart we get throughout the season, then go ahead, play through the pain, Josh. We're rooting for you. If the one we got on Friday night that was unplayable in the second half and only played 15 minutes, that guy should think about getting a surgery to fully repair his hand and this injury that he sustained. This is just the roller coaster I think we're all going to be on, guys. A lot of walking wounded on the Knicks so far, between Mitchell Robinson, who did hurt himself in the Bulls game on Sunday night, Cat and the quad strain that he's got, Josh Hart's hand, Yabusele's knee. It's just a shame that Tibbs is running them into the ground, right? I'm joking. I'm 100% joking. I am not entering into that discourse. Let's get to my conversation with Matt Modderno. He's a returning guest. He has helped preview many a Wizards game in the past, and it has never been a game against a competitive Wizards team. But hopefully you enjoy this conversation about the young Wizards on the roster and the potential for the Knicks to get another win on this ledger. Let's just put it that way. Hope you enjoy it. It's funny, when I originally booked this pregame show with my upcoming guest, I was very intrigued by a fun Wizards team. Hadn't been winning a lot. I had just watched the Sixers against the Wizards, a game that went into overtime. The Wizards unfortunately blew a fourth quarter lead in that one, but there were signs of progress, and it's exactly what you want from a young team. You know, you're competitive, but you end up losing, so you don't screw up your draft positioning. A lot of young players playing well. And then the next 2 games happened, and here we are. So the Wizards are 1-5, 28th in offense, 27th in defense, and 28th in net rating. Not that those numbers matter with the small sample size. Memo to all Knicks fans panicking right now. Those numbers do not matter under a small sample size. But they are 1-5 coming into this matchup. We'll see if the Knicks are 2-4, 3-3 coming into this matchup. And joining me to preview this matchup against the Washington Wizards from the Bleav In Wizards podcast, Mr. Matt Modderno. Matt, welcome back to Knicks Film School, sir.
Yeah, it's good to be back. You just kind of laid it out. I was excited to come on the show and be optimistic Matt as a Wizards fan for a change, but it's trending a little bit down already, but it's still better than last year, and I think we're still in a better spot. So we'll see how it goes.
Let's start right there. It's better than last year. Yeah. How? How is it better than last year?
Last game especially aside, they've been just a little feistier and a little more competitive. Last year, they were getting boat raced right from the start. And even with a young competitive team, like a young feisty team, there were just too many games where like by the first quarter, you kind of turned things off because you knew how it was going to go. Now we're at least making it into like the third quarter or late into the third quarter before teams start to pull away. The Thunder were kind of playing with their food a bit, but they hung until late in the third quarter 2 games ago. This Magic game was relatively over, early in the third quarter, but it just, that's going to happen with a young team. There are going to be some nights where you just totally lay an egg. It happens with good NBA teams from time to time, just less frequently. So if they're just more competitive than not, that's great. They're doing it a little more young player heavy or centric this year. And Keyshawn George looks like a dude. So to have a dude that's not already making $35 million a year is kind of nice for us for a change. So I think there's just at least a few more signs of life or potential for signs of life from this group.
Well, let's go into the young dudes that may or may not be part of the solution in Washington. You mentioned Keyshawn George shooting 53% from 3 to start the season, taking, I think, about 5.5 per game. So it's a decent sample size of volume that he's getting up. I know the recent game he had wasn't as efficient from 3, which brought his number down. I think that's the same with all of the Wizards that I wanted to talk about. Trey Johnson, so it's really a Fab Five, if you want to call it, of young Wizards, not the Harry Potter kind, the Washington Wizards, that are the future as of right now. That Wizards fans, if you're trying to invest in this team, you got these Fab Five. You got Keyshawn George, Bilal Coulibaly, Alex Sarr, Bub Carrington, and Trey Johnson. Of the 5 that I mentioned, it sounds like you've already answered this. Is Keyshawn George the one that Wizards fans are most excited about?
It's a little mixed. I think everybody kind of has their guy to some extent. So it's, might be like a 51-49 thing for some folks, him above others. But I think for me, he's the guy that's most promising. He looks the guy that's most like someone that could be a 2 or a 3 on a good team long term, I think. And the comp this offseason has been like Jalen Williams, like good Jalen Williams for the Thunder. So if you can be that kind of player, I think that's like a really good piece of a core. Whereas like to me, the other guy's profile a little lower. Trey Johnson's just tough to tell because it's just so new. We've got a 5-game sample size or whatever, 6-game sample size. So that one I'll kind of reserve. But like Sarr to me is like a really solid piece. He's a 4th or 5th starter on a really good team with the potential to get better, obviously. But that's kind of where I would profile him. To me, Bub is like a good 3rd guard. If there's just no offense from Coulibaly at any point, he's just like your defensive stopper. So if he's just tall Lou Dort, like that's obviously a good piece, but that still kind of limits your ceiling overall. Whereas George is like long, athletic, plays both ends, can kind of create for himself and others. And it's a little more what you want from like a guy with a higher ceiling.
And Keyshawn George, I'm not trying to pour salt in any wound, Knicks fans, but Keyshawn George, if you go to the 2024 NBA draft, was taken with the 24th overall pick, 24th, I believe, right? That's the slot.
Sounds right. Yeah.
Whichever it was.
26th. I can't remember anymore.
Whichever it was, the Knicks originally had the pick and they decided to trade out of the draft and take, because that was the year that they had back-to-back picks. The final compensation for the Porzingis trade was that the Knicks ended up with back-to-back picks in the first round of the 2024 NBA draft. They had 24 and 25. They traded out of 24, which ended up being Keyshawn George. And with 25th pick, they took Pacome Dadier, who we are not sure is an NBA player yet. That's with respect to Keyshawn George, because again, it stood out what his numbers are so far. The one I'm actually more frustrated with is that in the second round, the Knicks had a pick and traded out, and it was AJ Mitchell. So this is the crapshoot of the draft, though. So I can't get too upset.
I'm like, this is my one tip my cap moment. I think I'm the only person on earth that had AJ Mitchell in their lottery that year going into the draft. So I'm like feeling pretty good about that one at the moment. I wanted the Wizards to take him so badly. And it was like, well, we already have guards and we're going to draft Bub. And it's like, okay, we'll see how that ages,
Yeah.
But that's how it goes.
Well, shout out to you. The history is going to prove you right on that.
Every once in a while, there's a few blind squirrel moments here.
I was about to say the broken clock. It's right twice a day. Exactly. So let's go through the list. Alex Sarr, what have you seen from him through 6 games of his sophomore season?
Yeah, last year he was really just kind of like a 7-foot shooting guard, and that was a bit frustrating. Like he would backpedal to the 3-point line anytime he had somebody he could exploit a mismatch against potentially, and he was like fading away on layups over guys that were half his size, and it was just really frustrating to see kind of the lack of physicality. And this year it's just different. Like the Magic game notwithstanding, he was a little willing to take more of a back seat, but especially that Sixers game. There's like one play where he went at Joel Embiid, got blocked, grabbed the ball, and then went back up and dunked, and then kind of mean mugged Embiid on the way back down the court. And you're like, yes, do this every possession. So I think he's seeing himself have some success actually trying to play like a center who can occasionally step out, as opposed to a shooting guard who can occasionally go to the rim. And hopefully that's incentive for him to keep doing it, because he's been just night and day better and more aggressive. And I forget the stat, but he's like one of the better pick and roll finishers in the league right now. And they never had him as a roller. He was always the pop man last year, or the guy, ghosting the screen every time. So it was really cool to just see him like actually run to the basket. And you're like, yes, just bottle this for forever.
Yeah, and going through the box scores of the Wizards so far this year, the thing I look for with Sarr is his shot chart. Like, I want to see what's in the paint, what's on the perimeter. And it does seem, to your point, like there's more action in the paint. Again, the one Wizards game that I was somewhat attentive to, I'll just be completely honest with you, Matt, I was watching VJ Edgecombe and Tyrese Maxey, but
totally
it did stand out what Sarr is down in the post just a bit more. And maybe as somebody who has said some negative things about Joel Embiid in the past, I quite enjoyed that moment of Sarr taking Embiid's lunch. I now go to Bub Carrington. I think the only question I have is they're using him off the bench this year. Now, part of that might just be by default because like CJ McCollum is, I should say Knicks fan, CJ McCollum is on this basketball team. Chris Middleton is on this basketball team. I do want to ask you about Cam Whitmore later, but there are some veterans playing ahead of some of the younger players, specifically 2 of them. Do you see Bub Carrington eventually being a starter, or do you think he's more of a piece off the bench?
So he actually started the year as a starter, and they transitioned him to the bench when Coulibaly came back. So he's actually only been coming off the bench the last 2 or 3 games. I'm already kind of losing track, but he's not been particularly good so far this year. And I should say, like, Wizards fans are totally out on him. To me, he looks like the exact same player he was. Not totally out, but there are more of them that are out.
They're more negative than positive on him.
I would definitely say so right now. There's a lot of like, can we just waive him kind of comments, which is insane. But that's kind of how our fan base, or all fan bases, roll at a certain point. But he's not taking a step forward, which I think each of the other young guys have. So when Coulibaly became available, they're committed to starting McCollum. They want to try to squeeze any value from him at the deadline they can, I think, is what they're trying to do here. And McCollum guards nobody, and Bub is still kind of bad defensively. So the 2 of them together were just getting steamrolled on the perimeter. So I think they thought Coulibaly next to McCollum would kind of offset that a little bit, although their perimeter defense has been worse the last 2, at least last game for sure, and not great against the Thunder overall. So TBD what Bub looks like. To me, he's probably just like a good third guard, and that's okay.
It's interesting that the review or the scouting report on Coulibaly that you give is that the offense isn't there so far. So far, it played 2 games. So the sample size it's not even small. It's non-existent, but it's 2 games and he's only taken 7 attempts per game in each of the games, but it's at 33% for the season. So, that is Bub Carrington, what he's up to. Coulibaly in his 11 attempts per game over these 2 games is at 40%, but 22% from 3 on about 4.5 attempts. So I just, again, what you said, taller or longer Lou Dort, which may end up being a thing, but Lou Dort developed a shot at least that made him a contributing piece, obviously, to a title contender. I go through these 5 Wizards that we're talking about, these 5 young players, and I don't know. It's been a while since I've been in a position of like the success of the season isn't determined by wins and losses.
Sure. Yeah.
And I would just like the 2019 season is the last time the Knicks had a year that was very clearly, we don't care what our record ends up being. It's about, well, okay, that season was about wins and losses, except it was about losses. But there was like young players to potentially get excited about. Mitchell Robinson, Frank Ntilikina, Kevin Knox. And ironically, only one of those ended up being part of the solution. So I guess my question to you is, it somewhat relates to Koulibaly because he's been here the longest, but what does a successful season look like for the Wizards? Is it solely about let's spend the entire season on data collection and give these kids as many minutes as possible? Or is it like, do you need one of these kids to pop in order to say at the end of what will probably be a 50+ loss season, like this is a success?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's the one I wonder all the time is like, what is an actual successful season? I think a successful season is basically what happened in that Sixers game. Look competitive against good teams for as much as possible. Have at least one young guy kind of stand out in each of these games and then ultimately lose and keep our pick. So sorry, Knicks fans. I know we'll talk about that at some point here too, but that should be the goal for this year. And then hopefully you can kind of start to edge toward competitiveness again next season. I don't think they want to win anything. I don't think they should want to win anything. We do also have a pick swap with Phoenix. So if they're terrible, maybe that bails us out if we're like a hair too good, which I'm not ultimately worried about. We'll have one good game and my DMs are just literally like, oh my God, are we too good to keep our pick now? And it's like, calm back down. And now you lose the Magic game and it's like, oh my God, are we the worst team ever assembled and all our guys bust? So it's just sort of where we're at. But I think all of these guys, like you mentioned Ntilikina and Kevin Knox and Mitchell Robinson, like young group there. I don't think all of these young guys will be in the Wizards core in the future just because that's not how the NBA works. But I think all of them at least look like they could be, which is nice to know. Like none of these guys are like immediate day one busts. I think they will all be like competent NBA players for a long time. And that's nice to know, like, okay, all of these guys will be solid producers. Can just one of them take that leap into like, this guy could make an all-star team? And you're seeing enough little flashes here and there so far that maybe there's 2-3 candidates. And I think that's encouraging, at least.
To follow the Knicks plan, which I'll just never get over the fact that that's now a good thing that people might want to follow the Knicks plan. Sure. But like that 2019 season, 2018-19, where they went 17-65, ended up with the 3rd pick, drafted RJ Barrett. Then the following season, still a lottery team, but they had 2 first-round picks, and they took Obi Toppin and Emmanuel Quickley. Then the following season, they had Quentin Grimes and Deuce McBride and Jericho Sims, and it's just like every year they're adding younger players that could potentially be part of the solution. But what they did was it really starts with hiring Tom Thibodeau, and it's like, we're not just here to only lose games.
Sure.
And it was like, okay, you're contributing. In that first season under Tibbs, they were 4 seed, but it was like Julius Randle hitting every mid-range shot, and then a bunch of like younger players quickly as a rookie was finding his path into competitive, meaningful basketball games. RJ Barrett was a starter on a team. It was a 4 seed. Mitchell Robinson was a starter on that team, even though he got hurt. And it just seemed like you're not just here to get your reps. We're going to bring you along slowly in games that actually matter to winning. I say that. 2-part question. We'll start with the vets that are currently on the Wizards. I wondered before the season, doing my over-unders, like, what does Chris Middleton have left? What does CJ McCollum have left? Cam Whitmore is a fascinating test case of does a change of scenery and more usage actually allow him to play, like have a bigger role and perform better? And like, do the Wizards have any chance of winning more games than expected because of the veterans on this team? And could they follow a similar approach? Was there any hope that they'd just be better than the 21.5 over under that the Wizards were coming into this year? Because ironically, it's the same number that the Knicks were over under that first year under Tibbs, and they blew past it. Or was it I mean, not to answer the question for you, was it just like these guys are here for 3 months and then they're going to get bought out? You know, like these guys are here for a short time, not a long time.
Yeah, I figured at the, like, I don't know, best or worst case, however you look at it, I guess, like McCollum was probably a wash with the production they got from Poole. So that was what it was. And then Middleton at the end of the year, he looked like rickety and old and just slow. And it's like, all right, if they get anything from him or for him, you know, that'll be an unexpected or a pleasant surprise. So I didn't think much of that. And I think this front office at least has studied the errors of front offices past here in Washington and just said, hey, we're not going to win the last 7 games of the year or go on this like heater down the final 10 games and end up dropping from the Shaedon Sharpe pick to the Johnny Davis pick. We're going to like commit to the tank all the way through. So I figured at the very least, if they ended up magically too good, they would just sell off pieces until they weren't. And there's realistically only 2 like competent NBA bigs on this roster right now. And I think a really good way to just like organically tank is to just be small and not be able to rebound. So if they had to, you know, shut down Sarr early or trade off Marvin Bagley if he were, you know, magically too productive, like that kind of thing, I think they would be willing to do it. So I never really expected that. But again, you never fully know. Like it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if there was just so much internal growth that they were just magically, you know, better than expected. I would settle for that if it means all of our young guys look so good.
And then he's been, I said earlier that Coulibaly's been here the longest. Technically, there's another draft pick that has been there the longest. Corey Kispert still hanging around in the Washington area. How much longer do you see him in Washington? Is he like actually part of the solution in Washington? What's the review of Kispert?
I think he would be really helpful. Like if there were, let's say, a team out there that had aspirations of winning the East, that were a little underachieving and below 500 through the first 5 or 6 games of the year and could use another shooter and had the defensive infrastructure to make up for a guy that never actually guards anybody, perhaps there could be a deal that could be worked out for a team.
So you're describing the Knicks, very clearly the Knicks. Correct. I don't think of Corey, because of where they are with the second apron, I don't think they'll be in the Corey Kispert market, unfortunately.
You know, he's like a $11 million a year kind of guy. Like there's some team out there that's productive enough that could make a move for that. Someone in like a Knicks-like situation, I think, is kind of the team I could see having some interest for him, because he is not good defensively, but he's going to be a high 30s shooter, which as a shooting specialist, I feel like you should be over 40s if you're going to be like that is the one thing I do. He's a decent rim finisher. He cuts pretty well. Everybody loves to talk about his cutting. He'll miss like 3 threes in a row. I'm like, but did you see the cut he made? So it's just tough. Like he seems to kind of fallen out of the rotation here a little bit. Like the minutes are the lowest they've been since he was a rookie. And just the place in the rotation, like he's playing more garbage minutes than ever before. Like he was kind of first guy off the bench a lot of times for these last couple of years. And now it's 8th, 9th guy coming in. So I think the writing's on the wall here that this is sooner rather than later kind of thing for Corey.
It reminds me a lot of how things ended with Evan Fournier in New York. Obviously, there wasn't as much of a sample size with Evan Fournier in New York. He started a ton for his first year with the Knicks. And then when the shooting fell off, it was no longer defendable. That's not the word. But you know what I'm saying? Defensible. That's the word I'm thinking of. To play him as much as they did. Plus, again, they had a young player in Quentin Grimes ready to take over that spot. I totally forgot the other young player that the Knicks traded for was Cam Reddish, and the Cam Reddish conversations I had over the course of those 2 years, man. Yeah. So you mentioned the rotation and what Corey Kispert, how little he's played so far this year. He is about 20 minutes per game, but he is coming off the bench, and that may change a bit. Let's just go through what Knicks fans can expect on Monday night. They're still going to go 10 deep with Coulibaly playing. What's the injury situation look like? What could Knicks fans expect from a rotation from the Wizards?
Yeah, so they're relatively healthy unless somebody picked up a nagging little thing at the end of the Magic game that I haven't seen an update on yet at the time we're recording this. But the starting group, you're going to see McCollum, Coulibaly, Keyshawn George, Alex Sarr, and Chris Middleton. That's who they've seemed to want to roll with. And then the first couple guys off the bench, it's probably some combo of Trey Johnson or maybe even Cam Whitmore or Bub Carrington. It just depends kind of on who's struggling to start the game, or if Sarr picks up a foul, maybe you see Bagley come in, something to that effect. those are realistically the guys playing. They've been given some spot garbage minutes to Will Riley or Justin Champagnie, who's actually good for my money and a cheap guy. So if there were a player to like raid off of this roster, that'd be a guy I would consider for a lot of playoff teams. Trey could be one of the first couple guys coming in. Honestly, they just need the shooting. He's a rookie, so he's bad defensively, but at least you can see noticeable effort. Cam Whitmore is probably the other most polarizing guy on this Wizards roster. So I don't know if you want to have the Cam Whitmore convo now, but
we can go there now if you'd like to. What was your reaction when they traded for him, and I guess what do you expect from him this season?
Yeah, I loved the trade. Like for the Wizards, you should take as many swings at reclamation projects as you can. You've stockpiled all these second round picks. So to get a guy like that for 2 second round picks that at least at one point in time was viewed as a, top 7 or 8 pick, like that's worth it. And just some guys, this like the fit isn't right, or they don't vibe with a particular team or group and don't find their place. So second team guys, like I'm always willing to try that out. I think we're still seeing a lot of the things they saw in Houston that made it a little tougher to find minutes for him. There's a lot of tunnel vision. The defense is spotty. In the first game, he was like, hey, I'll guard Giannis, and actually like put up some resistance because he's physically strong enough to do that and quick enough to kind of stay in front of him. Obviously still got scored on because Giannis went for 40 that game, but like he tried, and you're like, okay, this is something here. And then there's another couple possessions where he'll just be like totally looking into the stands as this guy, back cuts behind him, and just it's confusing for a guy with those physical tools. The effort is inconsistent and the shooting is sort of hit or miss. He likes to take a lot of like dribble pull up threes that there's nobody behind him. So if it's a long miss, it's a run out.
It's a pick
dunk
six
for some. Pick six every time, and he's gotten openly scolded for that twice this season. Brian Keefe has had to call a timeout immediately after one of those to chastise him in the middle of the court. So I think there's some tough love going on there already. There's some pouting on a bench already. So it's just a few of those things you saw in Houston that made you worry. But he's still really young at 21. Like that's the kind of guy he's not a bad dude by all accounts. So I'm not worried about him like poisoning the locker room or anything crazy. The Wizards love to talk about their veteran leadership. You've got McCollum and Middleton and Anthony Gill, who I don't know if Knicks fans have ever even heard of, but he's a big name in Wizards fandom because they just talk about his veteran leadership all the time. So like you've got all these dudes, like somebody should take Cam under his wing and see if they can help save this dude from himself, because the talent is there. It's just, will he play like winning basketball at some point?
There was a contingent of Knicks fans 2 years ago that were obsessed with Cam Whitmore, and I was intrigued by him as a prospect coming out of college. Obviously, that's the draft the Knicks had. No, it's not. The year before that the Knicks had. Before the Knicks had 2 picks. He's a 2023 first round draft pick, right?
Yeah.
So I got to be honest. I think it's 100% generated by the fact he went to Villanova, and the Knicks just have a thing for people that went to Villanova. Not this year, I'll tell you that much. Although Mikal Bridges is off to a great start. So yeah, that was always my intrigue with Whitmore. It's like, listen, fine, let's just bring him in and see what happens. If the Knicks were able to get Cam Whitmore in any way, shape, or form,
it's at least a good story to have another Nova Knick.
Why not? Yeah. Why not? Just have another Nova Knick. The other thing about the Wizards, outside of the rotation, but their play style that I'm curious about, and this has been a thing that the Knicks have struggled with so far to start the year. So the Wizards are second in pace.
Yeah.
They're also third in field goal attempts per game. So the Knicks they've just been playing all these teams, the Chicago Bulls, the Miami Heat, like these teams that are just getting out and running and taking a ton of shots and not letting defenses get set. And the Knicks already have their challenges on defense with both Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson on the floor.
Sure.
And like the Knicks are taking a ton of threes, which is a good process. They're not falling at the moment. We saw them start to fall in the second half against Chicago on Friday night, but they've struggled with teams with pace, which is why, as a Knicks fan, I'm a little like, okay, that's a thing they've struggled with. And even if it's the Wizards, it's still a thing. What would you say to a Knicks fan that is worried about the Wizards' pace potentially being a problem in this matchup on Monday night?
I think they're doing it for 2 reasons. One, more shot attempts and more possessions is just more opportunities to evaluate these young guys and more time to see them actually do some things. So I don't know if it's necessarily like an amazing tactic to try to win ball games so much as it is like an evaluation tool. And I think the other piece of this is just if you can't shoot and you're going to miss a lot of perimeter jumpers, like more of them presumably means there's more opportunities for you to actually make some jumpers. So I think that's part of it. You've got a lot of young, fresh legs, so might as well use it while you can. This, like going back to the Sixers game, has probably been their most competitive game of the season against a good team that was playing well. They got to the overtime portion of the game here, and both Middleton and McCollum looked absolutely gassed. And the young guys were playing well, and they still went with the old vets, down the stretch, which I get it. They've been there. They're a little more proven. But also you could tell they were like both noticeably just like totally cooked at that point in the game. So I think organically, if I'm a Knicks fan, I'm like, I don't have to worry too much about losing this game or like us getting more tired than them. Like that would be my one thing on this Knicks team is like the depth isn't crazy there from my perspective. I don't know if that's how you guys feel about it, but the Wizards running you into the ground, I don't think is some like meaningful fear just because we're going to give enough opportunities to keep that game close no matter what. And I think ultimately I would trust where the Knicks core group is to finish a game out after being, battle tested through Tibbs 40 minutes a game, than where the Wizards core is.
Battle tested through Tibbs. That's a compliment, by the way.
Yeah, let's go with that.
That is a compliment. Before I ask you about the Knicks, I do want to ask about Brian Keefe.
Sure.
The Wizards head coach, who what's this, his second year, his third year under?
Second and a half.
Sorry, he took over for Wes Unseld Jr. Yeah, the fact that he's a bit of a tank commander from my perspective, and I don't mean that as a negative thing. Like Brett Brown was the guy in Philly that oversaw the process.
Yeah,
right.
That's the comp here too, right?
Okay.
Like, they really like him. He's a good developmental guy, and they will absolutely give him every chance to try to coach this team when they're good again, just to see if he can do it. I don't think that'll last meaningfully beyond a year or two once they're trying to be competitive again, personally.
Well, there's good versions of that and bad versions of that. Kenny Atkinson was the tank commander of the Nets when they were rebuilding and didn't really have control over their draft because they were helping to rebuild the Celtics all those years. Yeah, right. And they still built like a competent thing. And it was like really fun in 2019. So much fun that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving decided to go there in free agency. I guess it's just, I will say this. There was a portion of Knicks fans, mostly tongue-in-cheek, saying that the Wizards should hire Tibbs because then they could follow the Knicks plan. But more importantly, they'd win enough of meaningless games that maybe the Knicks end up getting their pick this year. So
maybe next year.
Maybe next year if things go a certain way. Let's talk about the Knicks. Your thoughts on their chances to win a title. You did say that you don't think the depth is there, which I'm curious. They're going about 10, sometimes 11 deep to start the year. Signed Gershon Yabusele, signed Jordan Clarkson. They're playing Tyler Kolek, Ariel Hukporti, Trey Jemison, and they just got like Mitchell Robinson and Deuce McBride back. So they advertise themselves as a deeper team this year, and also just like not having Tom Thibodeau as your head coach means you go deeper into your rotation. That's had mixed results so far to start the year because you're playing your best players less, which means worse basketball can be played for longer stretches at times. Your thoughts on what the Knicks roster looks like and their chances to win a championship?
I think this is like a really good team. I don't buy the 2-3 record. Like you said, I think more shots will fall. I obviously don't watch every minute of every Knicks game, but I see more encouraging things overall on the court. I think the main group obviously gels there. I do have some questions about just sort of the ancillary pieces here. Like I still wouldn't be like all in on the Yabusele thing. Like there's a reason he did flame out at one point. I'm sure he's improved, but how reliable do you want to be on him? I do like Deuce McBride a good amount. Josh Hart seems like he hasn't been all that great from what I've seen to start the year.
Been a rough start for Josh Hart. Did not mean for that to rhyme. That's just like what he's been so far this year.
It fits. Tyler Kolek is actually like productive during like a regular season stretch. I don't know how much you can play him in a playoff series as just like an undersized, not crazy athletic guy that isn't TJ McConnell. So it's hard for me to envision what that looks like. If he can just kind of help you get to the playoffs and then you cut the rotation a little bit, great. I wouldn't be buying into Landry Shamet doing much of anything in meaningful minutes personally. So it's just, to me, that leaves like 7 guys otherwise, and you're relying on Mitchell Robinson to stay healthy. I don't know enough about what Ariel Hukporti has done so far to really evaluate if he could actually survive any playoff minutes if he had to. So to me, like in the front court, especially, you've got Towns has had some injury stuff over the years, but is like fairly durable, I guess. Like, but can you survive an injury there? If Robinson goes down, what does that really look like? So I just have a few question marks, I guess.
I think you hit on all the question marks. Is the Yabusele experience has not been the greatest so far this year. I mean, he's here to be, I will say they're using him a way that we just never saw under Tibbs. He's played the 5 a ton, but just he's playing a bit heavy at the moment, and maybe he's playing himself into shape. It was encouraging to see that last year, the season that like he showed out with the Sixers and dunked on LeBron in the Olympics beforehand, and he's only 4 pounds heavier than he was last year. So maybe this is just how he plays. The Clarkson experience is up and down. The Shamet experience has actually been outstanding. I will say that. It's a regular season
to last though.
No, but like come playoff time, if he's your 8th man, and then if on a bad night he's not playing, that's what I need him to be, is the 8th or 9th man on the team.
That's fair.
The Josh Hart thing is eventually going to have to fix itself. Josh is like, it's a type of surgery that it would learning how to play with it is actually better than getting a surgery and like missing a whole season, because you're eventually going to have to learn how to play with it anyway.
Okay.
I will just respond to that by saying the way he's playing isn't working either. Like Josh Hart played 15 minutes, and not because of his injury. Like he had surgery on his hand in the offseason, and that's just not. It was like about differences between Tom Thibodeau and Mike Brown. Josh Hart would have been allowed to play through any injury that he had under Tom Thibodeau, just of how much trust he had with him. It's just been a really rough start for someone that like I consider a playoff hero for Knicks. He's part of the turnaround and taking them from like a fun play-in-ish team to like the top half of the conference. He's like a perfect 7th man in my mind. So
it's just a guy like, even if he wasn't scoring, you noticed him on a basketball court. And
bingo.
I watched this Bulls game to just make sure I was a little sharper going into this, and I was like, oh yeah, he did play, didn't he? Because he was just totally like a ghost on the court. I felt like if that's what you're going to get from him for the first month or 2 of the season, and then he can shake it off and be ready for the playoffs, like that's maybe survivable. But I think you need him to be like a competent member of the rotation, when you get down to it.
He's got to be Josh Hart. Like the first night that he played was against the Celtics, and he played 19 minutes, which to me is around like he's a 20 to 25 minute player. And when he's deployed perfectly, he had 14 rebounds. It's just like the Josh Hart thing. A ton of them offensive. He's creating extra possessions, all the hustle plays. And that's, I think, what a lot of Knicks fans over the last year and a half got annoyed with, is like the 20 to 25 minute Josh Hart is who we fell in love with. Tibbs was playing him 40 to 45 minutes, and
that's tough.
It overexposed him a bit. So I'm rooting for him. I hope Knicks fans who their frustrations with Tibbs don't officially turn on him and just understand this is a guy that like we went to war with and should be in the foxhole with us when we go to war again this playoffs. Because last playoffs, he was part of something very special. Unfortunately, part of that experience last year was a Game 1 loss to Indiana that I will refer to as that game going forward. I do understand I'm talking to someone who covers the Wizards and obviously a Wizards fan, but I am curious, I texted you what the idea of that game is, that devastating loss that every fan points to and is like, oh, that game. Ironically, we're talking hours after the Toronto Blue Jays had that game for their fan base.
They'll remember
My
that
goodness.
Forever, for sure.
My goodness. What do Wizards fans consider that game?
Yeah, so there were 2, at least in my time as a fan here. Maybe there's something from the 1979 playoffs against the Sonics that nobody my age will remember. But the 2 are the LeBron game where he goes up and whispers in Gilbert Arenas' ear at the free throw line, and Gilbert misses them. That's one. That was also the LeBron crab dribble series, and that was a whole big thing where he took like 11 steps through the lane and scored a huge bucket. But probably the most recent memory one is the 2017 second round series against the Celtics, the Kelly Olynyk game. I will forever just despise Kelly Olynyk. The Wizards traded for him this offseason. He got moved before ever playing a game here. Thank goodness, because he would have just received boos all year. I think the guy played like vintage Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for one game. Of course, it was to knock the Wizards out of the playoffs. So, it is what it is as Wizards fans to have that kind of be the end of really like the productive John Wall, Bradley Beal era team. But yeah, that's the one. I saw him at Summer League the summer after, and I was just like glaring at him from like 10 feet away the entire time with disgust. So
nobody knew why you were staring at him this way, but
he knew though. I feel like he had to know. Yeah,
he knew. I'm sorry to do this to you, but I want Knicks fans to understand who don't have the frame of reference of what Kelly Olynyk did this game. So in the 2017 playoff, that was a wide open.
Sure,
that was a wide open runner up.
It was definitely like a finals trip to lose to LeBron was on the table.
Right. It like the Celtics, that was the Isaiah Thomas season where he finished first team All NBA or fifth in MVP and then second team All NBA.
Something like
like he was averaging close to 30 a game, and then the Celtics were the 1 seed. And then they play this 7-game series against the Washington Wizards. It goes 7. And then
just Kelly, before you get to 7, in game 6, Wall hits a game winner, gets up on the table. This is my city. Like the way 6 ended, you were just like, this is our series. Like we are a team of destiny. And then you get to game 7.
So game 7, the Wizards lose 115 to 105. Kelly Olynyk in this series had no more than 14 points in the series. And then in game 7, Kelly Olynyk goes 10 of 14 from the field, including 2 of 6 from 3, and scoring 26 points off the bench in helping the Celtics defeat the Wizards 115-105. I would be haunted by this person forever, which is why I would understand just like giving him the side eye at Summer League, or the death stare, it sounds like, at Summer League if I ever saw him.
The Wizards have not made an Eastern Conference Finals in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. I am 37 years old. I have never seen beyond the second round of the playoffs. And that was the game to do it. And this dude goes supernova with timely basket after timely basket down the stretch.
I will just say, as a fellow 37-year-old who finally saw his team get back to a conference final. Now, granted, the Knicks, the first 2 years of my Knicks fandom were 99 and 2000. They made the finals and then the conference finals, and then never did it again. Yeah. Again, the phenomena, that game comes from the Knicks making the conference finals, where being so happy to be here lasted about 47 minutes, and then Tyrese Halliburton hit the craziest shot to send the game into overtime, and now here we are. Well, look, I for selfish reasons, I'm hoping the Wizards turn it around because the Knicks have their pick this year. But for people like you and for Wizards fans that are hanging through this stretch of basketball, I'm hoping they can have like a Pistons type rejuvenation like we saw last year, or like what the Magic have put together. Mm-hmm. Maybe some draft luck, some Darren Peterson or Cam Boozer or AJ DeBanza will help with that. But I'm rooting for Wizards fans to see some good basketball in the not too distant future for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I've said this every time. I do feel like sort of this kindred connection with Knicks fans, because I feel like we were just like the disappointing teams in the East together for the same stretch, and you guys have gotten out of the cellar. So it gives me hope that we can get there too.
Again, either some draft luck or some Tom Thibodeau. That's all it takes, is some draft luck or Tom Thibodeau. I think we know which direction the Wizards are going to go. Matt, you've been good as always. Before you get out of here, please let the fine folks at home know where they can find you and all of your work.
On Twitter at Matt Modderno, and Bleav In Wizards Podcast with Jahadi White, former center on the team. So we just chop it up about the Wizards, and he tells good stories about guys he played with and things like that. He had really good perspective on the whole Chauncey Billups thing, because he knows Chauncey pretty well. So just stuff like that. If anybody's ever interested, come check us out. To
plug that pod even further, like, what is his perspective on the Billups thing?
Yeah, I mean, it was honestly just kind of shock, because everybody, and he's not the only one to say this, but we're like, Chauncey was like the literal guy you looked at. We're like, that is the poster child of professionalism amongst players in the NBA. So that was like the most out of left field name. And Jahadi went to Georgetown and played with Allen Iverson there. So like he's seen volatile Sarr who might, do some stuff off the court that's a little crazy. And like Chauncey was, in his experience, like the opposite kind of guy from that. So it was just interesting kind of hearing him talk about him, the person, more than just this guy in the news.
So Knicks fans, I'll just say this now. That episode is hyperlinked in the episode description here. If you want to go check that out and hear from somebody that's not just like a talking head, but someone that has a relationship with Chauncey Billups, it'll be hyperlinked in this episode. You can go right there and check it out. Matt, as always, thank you for joining me. And thank you to all of you for checking out this edition of the Knicks Film School pregame show. If you dug it, please like this video. Remember to subscribe. If you're listening, please leave a 5-star rating and a review. Wherever you're listening to your podcast, follow us on all socials at Knick Film SKOOL. And then if you're looking for some bonus content, we've got a newsletter on Substack written by Jonathan Macri, drops every day, and we've got some bonus content on Patreon. Benji, DJ, Jonathan are all doing bonus content throughout the season, so go check out our stuff there. I will be back on Wednesday to preview the Knicks matchup against the Minnesota Timberwolves. But until next time, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Let's go Knicks, and I'll speak with you soon. Peace.
Must be 21 or over. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777. Massachusetts, call 800-327-5050. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY. Maryland, visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Not available in all states. Terms apply. See Fanatics Sportsbook app.